My stepmom accused me of SA to steal my inheritance right after I turned 21. My dad cut me off without hesitation. 7 years later, he finally discovered what really happened. And now she's dealing with consequences. She thought she'd outsmarted. Hey, Reddit. My stepmom tried to destroy me to steal what my dad planned to leave me. He believed her, cut me off, and I rebuilt my life from scratch. 7 years later, the truth finally came out, and the fallout is wild. Before we get to that, let me start from the beginning. I'm Jake, I'm 28 now, and this started when I was 12. My parents divorced when I was 9. Clean split, no screaming matches, just two people who figured out marriage wasn't working. They handled custody like adults. I stayed with mom during the week for school, spent weekends with dad. Both made it clear the divorce wasn't about me, even if it still sucked watching your family split. Dad met Claire 2 years later. I was 11 when he introduced us at some overpriced Italian place downtown. She seemed fine at first, asked about school, remembered I played basketball, smiled when appropriate. Dad looked happier than I'd seen him since the divorce, so I figured this was good. Claire had twin daughters, Vanessa and Victoria, who were 14. Their dad had vanished before they were born, so Claire raised them solo. The result was two teenagers who'd throw public meltdowns if they didn't get exactly what they wanted. I'm talking full-volume crying in restaurants, screaming in stores, the works. I'd just sit there watching them embarrass themselves while Claire scrambled to fix it. After a year of dating, Dad married her. I was 12. Mom even showed up to the wedding, kept things civil. For about 3 months, I actually thought having more family around might be okay. Then things changed. One Saturday, after Dad left early for a weekend shift, she cornered me in the kitchen. I was pouring cereal when she cleared her throat. I looked up and her expression had changed. "We need to get something straight," she said. "I don't like you. Never have. But your dad can't know that. So we're going to pretend when he's around. When he's not here, stay out of my sight. Seeing your face reminds me of your mother, and I hate that woman." I was 12 years old. I'd thought we were building something. The twins overheard from the next room, started giggling. Victoria came in later and said Dad loved them more now, that I should just stay at Mom's permanently since nobody wanted me here. I went home that Sunday and told Mom everything. She went nuclear, called Dad immediately, tore into him for 10 straight minutes. Dad had an excuse for everything. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe Claire was joking. Maybe I misheard. He didn't need proof. Next weekend, Claire waited until Dad left for the hardware store. Got right in my face. "You tell your mother anything again, and I'll divorce your dad and take everything he has. You want to see him living on the streets? Keep your mouth shut or I'll make it happen." I was a scared 12-year-old kid. I believed her. So I shut up. That's when the abuse started. Claire had a system. She'd comment on my height, my weight, my clothes. Tell me I was ugly, awkward, that I'd never amount to anything. Call me stupid when I got a B instead of an A. The twins would join in, call me names whenever Dad wasn't around. But the second Dad walked in, Claire transformed. All smiles. Asking about my day. Acting like the perfect stepmom. Here's where it got brutal. Claire would use Dad's credit card to pay for meals, but I wasn't allowed to eat real food. Just soup or dessert while everyone else got full meals. I'd sit there watching them demolish steaks and pasta while my stomach growled. Then she'd send me to bed hungry. 8:30 at night, empty stomach, crying into my pillow so nobody would hear. This became routine. I started making excuses to avoid going to Dad's. Stomach aches, headaches, school projects, anything to stay at Mom's. Dad would call sounding hurt, asking why I didn't want to see him. Mom kept pushing me to tell her what was wrong, but Claire's threat stuck. I stayed quiet. Claire knew exactly what she was doing. The twins learned from watching her. They'd accidentally ruin my homework, hide my basketball shoes before games, delete saved games on my PlayStation. Claire also weaponized privacy invasion. Would barge into my room without knocking, sometimes while I was changing. Would go through my backpack, read my journals, check my phone. I caught her in Dad's office once, going through file cabinets where he kept old tax documents and paperwork. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was organizing and told me to mind my own business. Dad backed her up, said she was just being a concerned parent. By 13, I developed constant anxiety about weekends. The only thing that kept me going was basketball and knowing I'd be back at Mom's eventually. When I turned 14, my dad announced a 2-week family trip to Greece. I tried to get out of it, but my mom said I shouldn't let Claire ruin travel for me. So I went. Big mistake. By then, Claire had perfected her new tactic. Insults disguised as jokes whenever my dad was around. At dinner, she'd say things like, Jake should really consider growing a few more inches if he wants that basketball scholarship, then laugh like she was being playful. I was already 5 to 10 at 14, but that didn't matter. She'd follow with, maybe focus more on grades than sports if you want to be something in life. Even though the twins were pulling C's and I was sitting on a 3.8 GPA, Vanessa and Victoria followed her lead. They'd call me meathead every time Dad stepped away. He heard it, pretended he didn't, and if I said something hurt, he'd tell me to lighten up. Claire would smile and say I just lacked a sense of humor. This went on the entire vacation. One afternoon at the hotel pool, things finally boiled over. I'd spent the morning wandering around the island alone, came back to cool off, and jumped into the pool. Claire and the twins were already camped out on the far side. 10 minutes later, they drifted toward me. Slow, casual, like they were just swimming, then positioned themselves close enough for everyone to hear. Victoria started it. Jake, you know what would really help with that? She gestured vaguely at my chest. Cardio. Actual running, not just lifting. Builds lean muscle instead of bulk. I ignored her and swam away, but Vanessa followed. Some guys just have slow metabolisms, she said loudly. They stay pudgy no matter what they do. Genetics, probably. People around the pool were staring. Claire laughed and joined in from the edge. Teenage boys think lifting makes them look good, but cardio is what burns fat. She looked directly at me. Jake, honey, maybe you should think about cutting portions at dinner. And this from the woman who had been deliberately starving me for 2 years. Something in me just stopped. I wasn't angry. I was done. I stood in the water and looked at the twins. You two might want to work on those double chins before giving fitness advice. They froze. Then I turned to Claire. And you might want to skip the shrug. Your stomach hangs over that bikini. You look like a penguin waddling around. Claire's face went from tan to scarlet in seconds. She gasped, scrambled out of the pool, and ran. The twins hesitated until she left, then launched into their performance, screaming about how horrible I was, how sexist, how I'd attacked them for no reason. People instantly looked away. A mom grabbed her kids and moved. Dad heard the commotion from the poolside lounge and came over confused. The twins ran to him crying, conveniently skipping the 20 minutes they'd been mocking me in public. An hour later, he found me in my room. Did you really say that to Claire and the girls? Yeah. After they spent 20 minutes ripping into me in front of everyone? He didn't want the explanation. He launched into a lecture about respect and morality, about how he'd raised me better. He didn't care what actually happened, just that I'd embarrassed his wife. He forced me to apologize. He marched me to their room where Claire was locked in the bathroom, supposedly hysterical. The twins sat on the bed smirking. When Claire finally came out, eyes red, I apologized on command. She sniffled and said she forgave me, but was deeply hurt. The twins nodded like backup dancers. When I got home, I told Mom about the pool incident, and enough of what had been happening to scare her. The starvation, the mockery, the psychological games. She called Dad and threatened CPS if Claire ever commented on my appearance again. He must have said something, because the weight insult stopped, but Claire found new ways to make my visits miserable. Ignoring me, forgetting, to tell me about family plans, going through my belongings, making the house feel like enemy territory. 2 years later, Mom had to leave town for work, so I was stuck at Dad's for 3 days. On my last night, Claire complained to Dad about having to cook for an extra person, so I offered to make dinner. Mom had taught me young, said a kid should know how to take care of himself. Claire's eyes lit up. I've been meaning to have friends over. Would you mind cooking for them too? I should have seen the trap, but I was 16, still trying to prove I wasn't the problem. I agreed. She invited 4 friends. I cooked for 9 people. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, garlic bread, Caesar salad, spent 3 hours prepping, and it went well. Her friends loved it. Dad was proud. Even the twins couldn't find anything to complain about. After dinner, Dad said he'd clean up. I went to my room. 20 minutes later, I heard voices outside my window. Claire and her friends were on the patio. They weren't being quiet. One friend told her how lucky she was. Nice husband, nice house, helpful stepson. Claire laughed sharply. That kid is the most annoying thing in my life. Can't stand seeing his face. Counting down until he turns 18, and I never have to deal with him again. Her friend tried to redirect. Said dinner was good. I was hoping he'd screw it up, Claire said. Burn something. Undercook the chicken. I wanted him to fail so I'd have something to complain about to Rick. She'd been rooting for me to fail the entire time. Sitting there, listening to her, something finally clicked. Nothing I did would ever change her. She'd decided who I was years before, and she was committed to hating me. That night, at 16, I stopped trying. College was my escape route. Got accepted to a state university 8 hours away, far enough that weekend visits weren't expected. First year, I went back maybe once. Dad would call sounding hurt, try to guilt me about family being important, never connected the dots about why I was staying away. Second year, I tried visiting during spring break. Thought maybe distance had improved things. Nope, it was the same game as always, just dressed up differently. She'd planned family outings on days I was there but wouldn't tell me. I'd wake up to an empty house, then get a text from Dad asking why I didn't come to breakfast or the museum or wherever. Claire would tell him she mentioned it. I must have forgotten. The privacy invasion continued. Would come into my room at 7 in the morning, throw open the door, turn on lights, start vacuuming. When I complained, she'd say it was her house and she needed to clean. Meanwhile, the twins' room stayed private and untouched. Family would order takeout. Nobody would tell me dinner was ready. I'd come downstairs an hour later to empty pizza boxes. Dad would say they thought I'd already eaten. Claire would shrug, say I should have come down if I was hungry. Some of my mail still came to Dad's address. Bank statements, credit card offers, official documents that hadn't caught up to my school address. By then, I avoided anything connected to Dad, including updating addresses tied to that house. Claire would collect it, set it aside somewhere. I'd find it weeks later, sometimes already opened. When I asked why she opened my mail, she said she thought it might be important and was just trying to help. I kept my head down, stayed polite, tried to maintain some connection with Dad, but every visit felt like a minefield. I turned 21 during junior year when my dad called asking me to visit, saying he had important news. I hadn't been home in almost a year, but my mom urged me to go. She thought it might be about his health. So I made the 8-hour drive. Dad greeted me like he was genuinely happy to see me, though he refused to say what the news was until dinner. Inside, the twins were there for the first time in over a year. They barely looked up before going right back to their phones. Fine by me. Dad ordered a full Italian spread and set the table like it was a holiday. Claire was in the kitchen plating food when I came down. She looked at me, her face went cold for a second, then she went neutral and said nothing. We sat, Dad at the head, Claire at his right, me at his left, the twins across from me. He started talking about family, about being proud of us, building up to something. The twins kept sneaking looks at each other. Claire wore this tight smile like she already knew what was coming. Then Dad mentioned his friend Carl dying suddenly, and how it made him think about planning for the future. He said he'd met with a lawyer and drawn up a will. The mood shifted instantly. He announced that Claire would get the house. Financial security, he called it. Claire lit up, kissed his cheek, squeezed his hand like she'd won something. Then he turned to me. Jake, I'm leaving you my entire retirement account and the Mustang. $850,000. And the 1967 Mustang he'd restored over years. The car he'd taught me everything on. The one full of stories from before I was born. It hit me hard. It wasn't just money. It felt like trust. Like he'd finally chosen to value me. I had no idea what kind of war that decision was about to start. It wasn't just money or a car. It was him saying he trusted me. My mind raced. That was close to $1 million total. Life-changing money. Thank you, I managed. Thank you. Dad smiled, nodded, then turned to the twins. Vanessa, Victoria, I'm leaving you the joint bank account that Claire and I share. About $180,000, split equally between you. Plus, you'll have this house to live in with your mom, so you'll always have security. The twins' expressions shifted immediately. Vanessa's smile faltered. Victoria glanced at Claire. That's it? Vanessa said. $90,000 each? Plus the house, Dad repeated. You'll have a place to live. No mortgage, no rent. That's worth more than you might realize. Victoria leaned forward. But Jake's getting almost $1 million. We're only getting $90,000 each. That doesn't seem fair. I've already paid for your college, Dad said. His tone was gentle but firm. Paid off your student loans. Helped you both with cars. Given you financial support while you were getting established. This is on top of everything else. But he's a guy, Claire interjected. Jake should make his own way. My daughters need more financial security. Women need... Claire. Dad's voice was still calm but had an edge now. I've thought about this carefully. Everyone's getting something substantial. This is my decision. Claire's jaw tightened. She looked at the twins, who both looked back at her. Some unspoken communication happening. We just think, Victoria tried again, that maybe the retirement account should be split between all of us. Or at least, my mind is made up, Dad said. Firmer now. This is fair. Everyone's taken care of. I stayed quiet, watching this unfold. Didn't want to get involved, didn't want to make it worse. Claire stared at her plate. The twins exchanged another look. Then Claire burst into tears. We looked at her, confused. Dad gently asked what was wrong. That's when she dropped it. I've kept quiet for years to protect this family, but I can't anymore. Room went silent. Dad urged her to explain. After that Greece trip, she said between sobs, when Jake was 14, he started acting inappropriate toward me. Staring, trying to come into our bedroom. I was afraid to say anything because he was young and who would believe me? The words didn't register at first. Then it hit all at once. A rush of adrenaline that made my hands shake. The room tilted slightly. Sound got muffled. Before I could respond, Claire kept going. Said I'd try to walk in when she was showering. Get too close to her face when we were alone. Said as I got older it got worse. And one time when we were alone, I tried to assault her. Blood drained from my face. My heart was hammering. Dad looked between us. I found my voice. That's not true. That never happened. None of that happened. But Claire kept crying. Said she suffered in silence to protect the family, afraid no one would believe her, terrified of breaking up our home. The twins didn't scream. They watched Claire, waited, then jumped in on cue. Vanessa calling me disgusting. Victoria saying she always knew something was wrong with me. Their voices overlapped. The room felt too small, too hot. I looked at Dad, desperate for him to say something, to defend me, to call this what it was, a lie designed to steal my inheritance. He just sat there, processing, calculating, deciding. Is this true? He finally asked Claire. She nodded, tears streaming. I would never lie about your son. As your wife, you should believe me. Dad, please. My voice cracked. She's lying. She's making this up because she doesn't want me to have... Jake. Dad held up his hand. You need to leave until we figure this out. The words didn't make sense. Leave? Figure this out? There was nothing to figure out. Claire had just accused me of sexual assault and he was... You're kicking me out? I stood up. Chair scraped against the floor. You're actually choosing her? I'm not choosing anyone. I'm saying we need space to... She's lying! Voice came out louder than I meant. The twins flinched. Claire looked at Dad like she was scared of me, which made everything worse. She's been torturing me for years, starving me, humiliating me, and now she's... Jake, leave! Dad's voice was firm now. Final. Get your things. Go. I stood there for another second, looking at him, waiting for him to take it back, to believe me, to be my father. He didn't. I went upstairs, threw my clothes in my bag, hands shaking so bad I could barely zip it. Came back down. They were still sitting at the table, Claire sobbing into her hands, Dad's arm around her shoulder, the twins glaring at me. I walked past them, opened the front door. Cold air hit my face. Jake, Dad called. I turned. I'll call you when we've had time to process this. I didn't respond, just walked out. The door closed behind me. I drove straight to my mom's house. 8 hours in the dark, sick with anger. When I told her what happened, she was ready to confront Claire herself, but I stopped her. If Claire was willing to invent a sexual assault accusation over money, she was capable of anything. I cut my dad off completely. He'd chosen her without hesitation. A few days later, Mom said he'd called to say he was ashamed to have a son like me. His relatives piled on too, blaming her for how I'd turned out. I watched it wear her down. Meanwhile, my phone blew up with messages from Claire and the twins. Threats, insults, demands I stay away forever. I eventually changed my number and filed a harassment report. But the real damage stuck. I became terrified of being around women. I stopped dating, stopped going out, avoided mixed groups entirely. My life basically imploded. Mom noticed during a phone call and flew out the next day. She stayed 2 months and kept me afloat until I could function again. It took 2 years before I felt like a person. I finished school, got my forensic accounting degree, and focused on work. Then, at 26, I met Elise at a conference. She'd given a presentation on IP law, and later we ended up talking at the hotel bar. She rode motorcycles, rebuilt her own Ducati, and didn't take crap from anyone. We exchanged numbers, started talking regularly, grabbed dinner when we were in the same city, eventually admitted we liked each other. I didn't tell her about Claire for 6 months. Finally, just blurted it out one night. My stepmom accused me of sexual assault when I was 21 to steal my inheritance. My dad believed her and cut me off. It was all lies. Elise didn't flinch. Did you do it? No. Then she's a piece of work and your dad's a coward. Want to tell me the whole story? I did. Told her everything. She listened without interrupting. Didn't try to fix anything. Just let me talk. When I finished, she said, None of that is your fault. That validation meant everything. We moved in together a year later. Mom met her, loved her immediately. I was 28 when Dad called. 7 years since that dinner. 7 years of silence. Hadn't heard his voice in all that time. He sounded older, worn down. First thing he said was how much he missed me. I asked how he got my new number. He dodged, asked if I was okay. Don't call me again. I have nothing to say to you. That's when he broke down crying. Started begging forgiveness, saying how terrible he was. My curiosity won. I stayed on the line. Dad explained Claire had been cheating on him with his business partner for 3 years. When he confronted her with proof, she didn't bother denying it. Said she was tired of being married to a pathetic man like him, that she'd only married him for money and hated every minute. When Dad pushed for more truth, Claire admitted she'd made up the assault allegations. Said she hated me and wanted all his wealth for herself and her daughters. That they deserved it, not me. Dad had a prenup with an infidelity clause. And once the affair became public, Claire's lawyers pushed for a quiet settlement instead of a court fight that would expose everything. She got nothing. He said he'd waited to finalize the divorce before contacting me. Wanted to apologize, rebuild our relationship. When he said rebuild our relationship, I laughed. You're not my father. After how fast you abandoned me, I want nothing to do with you. I hung up. Dad didn't get the message. Since that call, I've been bombarded with calls and texts from him and his family, relatives I haven't spoken to in 7 years, suddenly concerned, all saying the same thing. Dad's suffered enough, family forgives, I'm being cruel. The audacity was incredible. Same people who believed Claire without question, who gave Mom hell, who never once checked if maybe I was telling the truth, now they wanted to lecture me about family. I blocked Dad's number, blocked family members. But they were persistent. Different numbers, social media, whatever they could think of. I booked tickets for Mom and Elise to visit. Needed to tell them everything, not just about Dad's call, but about all those years with Claire. The manipulation, bullying, threats, starvation. I'd never told anyone the full story. When they arrived, we sat down and I laid it all out. Started from that morning when I was 12, and Claire told me she hated me. The threats about divorcing Dad. The comments. The meals where I wasn't allowed to eat. The nights I went to bed hungry. By the time I finished, all 3 of us were crying. Mom hugged me. Kept saying I should have told her sooner. Elise said no child should have gone through that it was valid if I never spoke to Dad again. Mom agreed. The only reason he's reaching out now is because he's lonely. When you needed him most, he chose his wife. That tells you everything. She was right. If Dad really loved me, he never would have believed I was capable of assault. But he didn't hesitate. Just took Claire's word and cut me out. Talking about it made me feel lighter. That's when Elise's phone rang. She stepped away to answer, came back looking serious. Jake, you need to hear this. That was my assistant. She ran a background check on Claire like I asked. Standard due diligence for the harassment case we're building. Found something weird in a trace report. Your name tied to Dad's address in a collections file. She told me to have you pull your credit report immediately. She pulled up her laptop, opened the credit report I'd just downloaded. There was a credit card in my name I'd never opened. $23,000 charged over 2 years, then sent to collections 4 years ago. The address on file? Dad's house? The phone number? 1 digit off from Claire's cell. My stomach dropped. There's more, Elise said, scrolling. A personal loan for $38,000. Different lender, same pattern. Applied for 6 years ago using your information, Dad's address, linked to an email that's definitely not yours. The email is j-r-thompson-80-7@Outlook, when you've never used Outlook in your life. I stared at the screen. Thompson was Claire's maiden name. The 87 was my birth year. She had access to everything, I said slowly. My social security card was in a file at Dad's house. Old documents from when I was a minor. There were copies of my driver's license in his safe. Mail came there on weekends when I visited. Elise kept scrolling. There's more. A utility account. Electric service for an apartment complex across town. Set up 5 years ago. The apartment number matches the one Victoria was renting back then, according to these property records. But the credit check to establish service? Run using your name and social. 3 separate incidents. 3 different years. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was systematic. Mom looked furious. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is criminal fraud, identity theft. Elise pulled up more records. The credit card charges are interesting. Luxury retailers mostly. Cash advances from ATMs near Dad's house. This was funding her lifestyle. Can we prove she did it? I asked. The email address with her maiden name helps. The phone number being one digit off from hers helps. The address being your dad's house helps. But we need more. Elise made some notes. I'm calling my guy who does forensic digital investigation. If she applied for these online, there might be IP address logs, device fingerprints, other digital breadcrumbs. How long will that take? Couple weeks for the initial report. But Jake, she looked at me seriously. This changes everything. The false accusation kept you isolated so you wouldn't check your credit, wouldn't discover what she'd done. She needed you cut off from your dad forever. This wasn't just about inheritance, it was about covering up fraud. The pieces clicked together. Claire hadn't just destroyed my relationship with Dad out of greed for his money. She'd been actively stealing my identity for years, and the accusation was insurance that I'd never come back around to discover it. What do we do? I asked. Elise made some notes. We build a case, make it airtight. The next 3 months moved fast. Elise found us a lawyer, Patterson, a no-nonsense identity theft specialist in his late 50s. He immediately filed fraud reports with the credit bureaus and police reports for each fake account Claire had opened in my name. He sent cease and desist letters to Claire and the twins. Claire panicked the moment she realized we weren't bluffing. She started sending threats from different numbers, each one feeding Patterson's growing file. The forensic investigation came back loaded. The credit card application had been submitted from my dad's home IP address. The handwriting on the loan was an obvious match to Claire's. Strong indicators of authorship, according to the examiner. The utility account for Victoria's old apartment had been set up with Claire's own cell phone number. Patterson called it a gift-wrapped case. He filed for a protective order. The judge took one look at the evidence, saw the threatening texts, and granted it immediately. The order covered Claire only. Vanessa had already reached out privately, asking for a safe, documented way to talk. Claire violated the order 6 days later. Patterson filed for contempt. Before the hearing even happened, police had enough to charge her. 3 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of felony credit card fraud. They arrested her at my dad's house. Vanessa later told me Dad just stood there, silent, while they cuffed her. 2 weeks after the arrest, Vanessa showed up at my apartment looking wrecked. Red eyes, smeared makeup, trembling hands. "Mom's losing it," she said. Elise stayed nearby, recording everything with her phone. Vanessa pulled up messages going back years. Screenshots of Claire instructing them to stick to the story. Messages bragging about credit cards in my name. He'll never check. And recent ones threatening them if they talk to lawyers. "Why show us this?" Elise asked. "Because I'm not going to prison for her," Vanessa said, crying. She used Jake's information for everything. Forged his signature. She said Dad owed her for dealing with him. She convinced herself that torturing a kid meant she deserved his money. I asked about the assault accusation. Vanessa stared at the floor and whispered that Claire made it up. She'd texted the twins before dinner, telling them to back up whatever she said. They assumed it was about the will, not what Claire actually accused me of. "Will you testify?" Elise asked. "Yes," Vanessa said, "if you keep Victoria and me out of this." With Vanessa's testimony and the messages, Claire's defense collapsed. The criminal trial was set for 6 weeks out, but Patterson moved aggressively for a civil settlement first. Claire's lawyer initially offered a joke, pay back the fraud debt and nothing else. Patterson countered with full restitution, legal fees, $100,000 in damages, public retractions admitting she fabricated the assault, and a court-ordered written acknowledgement that she'd lied. Her lawyer rejected it. A week before trial, they crawled back. She'd take the deal. But I wanted one more thing first. "I want to meet her," I told Patterson, face to face. He warned me it was risky. I didn't care. We met in a conference room, me, Elise, Patterson, Claire, and her lawyer. I hadn't seen her in 7 years. She'd aged hard, gray streaks, deep lines, eyes darting everywhere but at me. Her lawyer began reading settlement terms. I cut him off. "I want to hear it from her." "Why?" Claire scoffed. "You were always in the way. Rick's money should have been mine and my daughter's, not some kid from his first marriage." "I was 12 when you told me you hated me," I said. 12 when you threatened to destroy my dad if I spoke up. You starved me, humiliated me, went through my things, accused me of something disgusting to steal my inheritance. Then you stole my identity. You were fine," she snapped. "You had your mother, and you tried to ruin my life." She glared. "You ruined mine first. Always there, always taking Rick's attention. We deserved that money." In her mind, she was the victim. She always had been. "You're going to sign the settlement," I told her calmly. "You'll pay back everything. You'll pay damages and legal fees. You'll send retractions admitting you lied about the assault. And if you ever violate the protective order again, Patterson will make sure you don't see daylight. You can't. The criminal trial is in 6 weeks. You're looking at 3 felony convictions, 5 to 7 years. If you sign today and do everything we asked, I'll recommend probation instead of prison. But that's the only mercy I'm offering. Her hands shook. Her lawyer whispered to her. After a long, trembling pause, she signed. Elise and I walked out together. She squeezed my hand. How do you feel? Lighter, I said. 3 weeks later, Claire's retractions went out to the entire family. Letters admitting she'd fabricated the assault to manipulate the will. My dad forwarded his copy to me without comment. I deleted it. The criminal plea deal went through. Claire pled guilty, received 3 years probation, full restitution, a permanent felony record. She avoided prison because of my recommendation, but she'd be paying financially and socially for years. Vanessa contacted me once afterward. She said she and Victoria moved out, trying to start over. Their mom was spiraling. My dad was broken, divorced, disgraced, alone. Is he okay? I asked. No, she said. He knows he screwed up and doesn't know how to fix it. He can't, I said. Vanessa apologized for everything. We should have questioned Mom years ago. You were kids, I told her. Not always, she said quietly. She wasn't wrong, but I didn't have it in me to stay angry. Not at them. That night, Elise and I sat on our balcony. You could have pushed for maximum prison time, she said. I thought of 12-year-old me crying into a pillow from hunger, 14-year-old me getting humiliated in Greece, 21-year-old me being kicked out by my own father. Then, the 7 silent years rebuilding from the wreckage. Staying angry forever just lets her win differently, I said. She doesn't get to control my life anymore. Elise kissed me. You won. Not just legally. You actually won. And she was right. The victory wasn't the restitution or the criminal record. It was that I walked away whole. A week later, my dad called. Jake, I want to ship you the Mustang. I'll send the title separately. I don't want it. Please, he said. Let me do this one thing. I thought about the car. What it meant before that night. What it meant after. Fine. Send the title. That's it. He asked about the car again. I told him if I decided to sell it, I'd give him a dealer's address. 3 days later, the title arrived with a note. I failed you when you needed me most. I chose wrong. I hope you find peace. You deserved better than what I gave you. Dad, I put it in a drawer. 2 days later, he called again. Against my better judgment, I answered. He asked if I got the title, then said quietly, when Claire made that accusation, I was terrified. Terrified it might be true. Terrified it wasn't and I'd married someone capable of that lie. I chose the easier fear. He admitted everything. That he'd known Claire treated me poorly, seen signs, ignored them because facing them meant admitting he'd failed me, admitting he'd chosen the wrong partner. You think that changes anything? I asked. No. I just need you to know it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because I was weak, and by the time I realized what I'd done, you were gone. I told him the truth. He'd had so many chances. At 12. At 14. Every time I came home quieter and thinner. He'd always chosen comfort over me. That's not weakness, I said. That's a choice. He accepted it. I hung up. Later, Elise found me on the balcony. Does understanding him help? She asked. No, I said. It makes it worse. He wasn't blind. He was cowardly. She rested her head on my shoulder. You keeping the car? No, I'm selling it. Using the money for our down payment. She smiled. Turning his guilt into our future? Something like that. A week later, I gave my dad the dealer's address. He shipped the Mustang directly. I sold it 6 months later for $98,000. Our house down payment. Now, almost a year after that first call, I'm genuinely happy. Elise and I got married last month. My mom walked me down the aisle. I started my own forensic accounting firm. My first big client was a woman whose business partner had been stealing from her for years. I caught everything. It felt good. Claire is out there somewhere living with probation and a felony record, working retail, blaming everyone but herself. Dad is alone in a huge house he can't fill. The twins moved out of state and are trying to rebuild. And me? I built something better from what Claire tried to destroy. That's the real victory. Not the money, not the legal consequences, not the apologies. I survived her. I built a life she will never touch. Some people don't deserve second chances. Some relationships can't be fixed. And that's okay, because you move forward with the people who showed up when it mattered, and you build something worth keeping. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.